This is WROK.
There we go. We're all here. It's 7:30, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Royal Oak City Commission for July 12th, 2021. I'm Mayor Pro Tem Pat Perush, sitting in for Mayor Mike Fournier, who is attending to an urgent family matter that arose this weekend. I hope you all join us as we send good thoughts to him and his family at this time. The first item on our agenda is a roll call. I'm going to start with the names at the top of the screen. Commissioner Douglas.
Here in Royal Oak.
Commissioner Colo.
I'm here in Royal Oak.
Commissioner Dubak.
I am here in Royal Oak.
Commissioner Macy.
Here in Royal Oak.
And Commissioner Hunt.
Here in Royal Oak.
And Mayor Fournier is absent and excused. The next item on our agenda is an invocation to be given by Commissioner Hunt, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Hunt.
Thank you. We come together on today, July 12th, the birth date of Malala Yousafzai, which is recognized now as Malala Day. At the young age of 24, Malala has inspired people around the world with her passion, determination to make sure that girls everywhere can get an education. When the Taliban tried to silence her, Malala answered their brutality with strength and resolve. Malala is generally recognized for her advocacy of gender and education equality, and there is no doubt that her effort promoting peace and prosperity have made the world a better place. As we move forward this evening to work for and serve our city's residents through thoughtful, intentional, and respectful exchange of ideas, may we do so with the same spirit and purpose that Malala exudes. As neighbors, we must remember that every person in Royal Oak makes up our community, and there is value in each and every individual. We must communicate with truth, learn to trust one another, and seek to understand those whom we may differ. Ancient wisdom teaches us that we must remain cognizant as our thoughts become our words and our words become our actions. Our actions become our habits, and our habits become our character, and our character our destiny. With that in mind, let our destiny be peace, equity, and love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Hunt. Let's all stand now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on our agenda is a legislative update from State Senator Melanie McMorrow. We're delighted that she's able to join us this evening and give us an update as to what's been going on in Lansing. So Senator McMorrow, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the commission. Good to see everybody. And it was good to see everybody who came out to Normandy Oaks over the weekend. I was glad that we were able to stop by and see it before the little one was long overdue for a nap. So I'm very excited to bring her back. The splash pad looks so fun. Commissioner Colo, I saw that you got under the bucket and I was very envious of that. All right, update on the legislative side. The Senate will be meeting this Thursday. We are on our summer recess / in-district work period, but the Senate will be meeting this Thursday. I mentioned just prior to the meeting, we're not sure what is on the agenda yet. The House will not be meeting this week. They were tentatively scheduled to be in on Wednesday, and we were scheduled to meet the day after to take up anything that was up in the House. But that in mind, we are hearing that there may be some additional movement on some of the election bills that have been moving forward. A large number of constituents have reached out to us concerned about these bills. I've spoken against them, and they come on the heels of a report from the Senate Oversight Committee, 56-page report that found absolutely no widespread voter fraud in the state of Michigan, largely a Republican-led committee with one Democrat that I hope kind of lays to rest a lot of the concern that we've had that in my view, really does a disservice to our clerks, our election workers, everybody who works so hard to facilitate our elections. And, the more that these theories are pushed forward, the more we see public servants leaving the profession. I've already had at least one clerk in my district that I serve with who has quit over the past year after receiving a number of violent threats. And I hope that is the last of that. So we'll keep everybody posted. I know this is of concern for our community, making sure that people have access to the ballot and we are not disenfranchising voters as we move forward. So that may tentatively be up this week, but we will keep everybody posted as we learn more. With that being said, it is our summer in district work period. So while we have some tentative session dates scheduled both this month and one next month, this is a great time, especially now that so many people are vaccinated, for community events. So as there are things in the community that are happening, feel free to reach out to our office. I'd love to try to get to as many as possible, especially making up for the past year where we did a lot of this on Zoom. I'm looking forward to seeing people in person again. We will be looking to resume our normal coffee hours, but one thing that I'm committed to in our office is continuing to live stream them, even if we do here, is that the option to be virtual opens up the ability for people with kids to come, for people who may be disabled or have difficult schedules. At one point during the pandemic, we had almost 1,000 people on one of our virtual coffee hours. So we now hold virtual coffee hours every single week that the Senate is in session on Fridays. And we've rebroadcast them on the weekends for people who can't come during a workday. And they've been hugely successful. So we just sent a mailer out to let people know that we do those. And as we start to do more events in the community, we will be doing some testing on how we can broadcast those live and maybe facilitate Q&A virtually as well. But look out for that. But all of that is to say, if there's a session, we will have a virtual coffee hour. So I invite everybody to attend. Let the residents know that they can attend those as well. It's a really great place to get an update like this and also ask any burning question live. And we try to get to as many as possible. And the last thing that I want to touch on is we know the news of the Beaumont merger has come up again, another merger attempt, this time with Spectrum Health from the west side of the state. So this time it is with an in-state healthcare network. I'm monitoring it. And as there are any questions, Beaumont is my largest employer in the district and also obviously home here in Royal Oak. So as there are questions or concerns, we would invite you to send them to our office, and we're happy to communicate with Spectrum, with colleagues on that side of the state. The merger as it stands right now would see Beaumont's CEO step down and Spectrum's CEO step in to take over as the CEO of the hospital system. I know one question that has come up so far that we're looking into is the CRNA group at Beaumont recently voted to unionize. So a question came up, would that be recognized by the merger with Spectrum? So that's one of many questions. So as they come up, please let us know. We were heavily involved, myself, Rep. Ellison, and Congressman Levin with the previous merger attempt, which ended up dissolving. And I think, given where we stood and that it was an outstate hospital network, that was something that we pushed back fairly heavily on. But I think there's definitely some opportunity with an in-state merger, but we've seen trends around the country with hospital mergers increasing cost to patients. So we want to make sure that's not the case and that Beaumont retains its position as a world-class hospital system, attracting the best people and providing the best care. So just wanted to put that out there. As there are questions or concerns, feel free to send them our way. And with that, I will leave it for any questions.
Any questions for the senator? It's all very quiet this evening.
Dog says hi in the background.
We're all in summer mode. Well, if there aren't any questions, thank you very much for stopping by and giving us an update, and keep us posted as to what is going on in the next couple of sessions that come up. We welcome you to come back anytime and give us more information, and have a good summer if we don't see you until September. And thanks again for informing us this evening.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to suggest any changes to the agenda? If not, I will accept a motion to approve it as it was printed. Commissioner DeBuck,
I'll move for approval.
we have a motion by Commissioner DeBuck. Is there a second? A second by Commissioner Colo. Any discussion? If not, I will take a roll call and vote, starting with Commissioner Hunt,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBuck. Yes. Commissioner
Yes.
Colo
Yes.
and Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the agenda is approved. The next item is public comment. Ms. Schwanger, it's up to you. We're ready whenever you are.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Perush and members of the City Commission. Let me share my screen and begin public comment. Janice Wagman. This portion of my comment is for the residents of Royal Oak. Regarding the public safety millage proposal on tonight's agenda, this is not a renewal. It is a tax increase and a Headley override. Because of Headley and Proposal A, if you look at your December tax bill for the last 5 years, you will see the safety millage rate has slowly decreased, and generally your taxable value has increased, resulting in an increase in your taxes that stays within inflation. By passing what they call a renewal, you will actually be overriding those constraints. Your taxes will go up, and more importantly, the city could gain almost $1 million windfall in the very first year alone. To stay within inflation and Headley guidelines, the millage should be renewed at no more than 3.67 mils, not what they propose. Otherwise, it is not a renewal. This portion of my comment is for the city manager. In the interest of honesty and transparency, in your outreach initiatives, I would like to see a statement that the millage rate is not a renewal, but a tax increase because it overrides the voter-approved Headley Amendment, and that the city stands to gain almost $1 million extra in the very first year alone. COVID gave you a perfect opportunity to evaluate the impact of the downtown on safety support services. That evaluation may reveal that DDA should be contributing far more than the $540,000 they currently contribute, especially with the addition of the social district. If Henry Ford is expected to contribute a higher number of ambulance runs, discuss these additional expenses with them. Maybe they should have their own ambulance on site. Outsourcing the majority of parking enforcement should cut police department costs. The new police building should save on maintenance costs. Instead of asking for a substantial tax increase, look at ways to decrease costs. Residents are forced to live within our budgetary constraints, and the city should too. Thank you.
Dr. Wallace May Anderson, 404 Mount Vernon Boulevard. As a social liberal and fiscal conservative, I'm shocked to see a renewal of the public safety millage on the agenda. The current taxes are a serious barrier to people moving into the city. They're already very high, yet you say you want to provide affordable housing. Now, you, representing the city, have been throwing money around with gay. Most recently, you've hired high-priced outside attorneys to oppose the Veterans Memorial ballot proposal, a citizens' initiative petition. These attorneys are being paid the big bucks to fulfill your intention to suppress voters' First Amendment right to petition the government for redress of grievances. And you went ahead and disassembled and moved the Memorial Plaza area and the library entrance area, even though you were notified well in advance of the language of the ballot initiative and should have waited to begin demolition and construction in the Memorial Plaza and library entrance until the voters have their say in November. And not too long ago, you started spending city money on a PR firm to sell the downtown park to residents by whitewashing its problems. The city's getting a remarkable amount of COVID-19 relief money from the federal government over 2 years, and instead of using city financial staff to do the analysis and plan the fund's use, you've hired a separate organization to do the work. And that new downtown parking system, it's outrageous to double parking ticket costs and use cameras to send tickets to people whose time runs out. The hubris which led you to begin construction on the city's downtown park is likely to cost the taxpayers money. You had plenty of opportunity, though, to redesign the park around the original memorial space and at least to wait to begin construction until after the voters have their say in November. It is unfortunate that elected officials are immune from personal liability for decisions made in their official capacity when such decisions as these are made. Who are you serving in this community? How are you being fiscally responsible with our tax money? It certainly doesn't seem to focus on residents and neighborhoods.
My name is Tim Luke. I just like to thank the judge on you people. I'm frankly so embarrassed that I was even a part of Royal Oak at one time. Finally, somebody put a stop to your nonsense. This isn't your world. It's the people that live in Royal Oak's world. And if they could do more to put a stop to you, I wish them all well. Thank you. Tim.
Ron Wolf, 333 North Troy Street. Why we at least need a majority of a new mayor and 3 commissioners not affiliated with this present regime that caters to special interests. First voters who are thinking of voting straight Democrat, I would like to ask you hypothetically that if Kwame Kilpatrick moved to Royal Oak and ran for mayor as a Democrat, would you vote for him? This is just an analogy, as presently anyone, even a bait-and-switch developer / campaign donor, given prime downtown property for $1 with a charter illegal loan, could win Royal Oak in a landslide with enough political donations. All he or she would have to need is $30,000 of a political slush fund and run as a Democrat. Now more than ever, we must vote on principle more than on partisan affiliation. Again, would you vote for a rattlesnake only because it calls itself a Democrat? Thank this judge for stating in so many words that the city's hired attorneys that your mayor and commission, putting it mildly, was totally incredulous on at least 30 points regarding their obfuscations, including not at least placing this decision of the memorial moving on the November ballot. Now, they could not even, veterans returning from Vietnam, they couldn't even wear their uniforms in public after all they sacrificed. Many of us have no idea of how a Vietnam vet who had to pick up his best friend's arm and both legs as he was evacuated by chopper felt about that. What does this commission do to the majority of our surviving Vietnam vets? They give them another slap in the face by ignoring them and lying between their teeth that local veteran organizations were contacted. Never were they contacted or invited to participate before November. This commission already spent at least twice the amount spent on already expensive attorneys hired to lie to defend this scurrilous decision. Now they spend your money to make our veterans go away, and now they threaten you after placing our city in more than $200 million in bond debt with the help of Ron Boji, who is a stakeholder in this budget downtown park, destroying the library steps, sitting long, and millions donated to build the former Barbara Holman Memorial Plaza, for which not one tax dollar was spent. As they help pay for their spin doctors to blame our surviving veterans, who they ignored, as they were in the days they returned from Vietnam. Instead, what they're doing is, excuse me a minute here, I lost my place. I'm going to go over this again. Oh boy.
My name is Barbara Schultz. I reside at 4229 Yorba Linda Boulevard in Royal Oak. My family has owned multiple properties in Royal Oak for over 116 years. That's since 1905. I am calling regarding the Veterans War Memorial to demand that you follow the court order that was recently issued regarding the location and treatment of the memorial. As a commission, your behavior has been disrespectful of the Royal Oak veterans who support them. Second, whether by intent or accident, the placement of the portable toilets right next to the monument on the construction site is also disrespectful and disgusting. That needs to be moved immediately onto one of the other sites within the work area. As you know, there's plenty of space for workers to have access to it. And as I said, whether by intent or by accident, it represents a horrible disrespect of not only the veterans, but this whole democratic process that we are involved in. Thank you very much for the time to make my comment.
Hello, my name is John Galetka. On Friday, July 9th, we saw you lose the Veterans Memorial lawsuit and the court's order for you to place the proposal on the November ballot. Friday's court ruling shows that it was you who were acting illegally and trying to prevent Royal Oak residents from voting, which of course comes after a violation of the citywide vote in 2007, in which 90% of the residents voted to keep the memorial in its place. You illegally violated that ordinance by having your city attorney from the time, Jim Gillum, falsely or accurately admit to doing a sloppy job in his legal writings in 2007 so that the intent of the voters should not be honored. When will you realize it's the people's memorial, by their 90% vote, not yours, to move it around as will? You disrespect not only the veterans, but you disrespect the residents of Royal Oak, who expressed their Royal Oak values to keep it where it was. You insulted the very vets who implored you to respect Royal Oak voters as not having Royal Oak values themselves. It is you who does not portray Royal Oak values, nor democratic values, either with a capital D or a small d. You are illogical, illegal, and insulting to the people of Royal Oak. You don't make sense, and you do lie, like about moving the memorial from a grassy plot to protect it, only to place it along a busy sidewalk next to Troy Street. You've wasted money by ignoring the rights of the people now and those who voted in 2007. You've wasted money on high-priced attorneys from Clark Hill to suppress voters this year, and you will waste more money on the new park for years to come for all the things you left out of this year's budget, like the restroom that already is plumbing underground. People do not trust you with money. They do not trust you with their tax money when you give away $5.5 million to a favorite developer. Regarding open public meetings, it's past time. The governor has opened up everything beginning this month. You have no reason for not having full public open meetings. There are safe ways to do everything. You can use plexiglass or plastic shields in front of you, just like every 7-Eleven does. You can physically distance people by fully opening the council chambers and placing extra seats in the city hall lobby outside the chamber doors, and even use the farmer's market next door with a camera and monitor screens if you need to. Of course, we all know how you like to preen in front of the Zoom camera and edit the public comments that are called in, which fits right along with your suppressing and violating the rights of the residents. However, you are very much past time in opening up public meetings. Thank you. Hello, my name is
And Mayor Pro Tem Perusha, members of the City Commission, there was one additional public comment called in. It was a continuation of Mr. Wolf's first call. He spoke another 2 minutes and 48 seconds, which took him well over the 3-minute limit. In full disclosure, I tell you this, but it would require a motion to give him extra time to play that comment, and I will leave that to you.
Thank you, Ms. Schreiner. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone like to pull anything off the consent agenda? If not, then I will accept a motion to approve it. Commissioner Dubak. Commissioner Dubak, was that you making a motion?
I'm sorry. I thought you were just asking for items. Yes, I would move to pull item G and approve the rest of the consent agenda.
Item G, as in girl?
Yes.
Okay. We'll pull that one out. Anyone else? I'd like to pull something off of the consent agenda. Commissioner Colo?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to pull item I off the agenda, please.
We'll move item I. Anything else? Okay, then we need a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda. A motion by Commissioner Douglas. Support by Commissioner Hunt. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Commissioner Colo?
Yes.
Commissioner Dubak?
Yes.
Commissioner Macy?
Yes.
And Commissioner Hunt?
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda is approved except for items G and I. Commissioner Dubak, you wanted to have item G pulled off. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I was just looking to, bring this item forward so we can get a brief update from staff regarding the status of the social district. I'm wondering if Mr. Brake has any new information on this item.
So I'd be happy to answer that question, and also Mr. Twing, I see his monitor is on as well. So the commission recently passed the applications from the individual restaurants and proprietors that were forwarded on to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. They ultimately have the final say in giving approval of those applications before we can begin the social district. So the update that we've received from the MLCC, the ones that have been approved is Motor City Gas, Goose Line Alley, WROK on the Third, and Oak City Grill. We do have a couple others, or one other restaurant that'll be picking up the needed items, the cups, posters, and postcards. And so all of the geographic delineators are out. If you notice on the sidewalk, there's an indication where the different locations are of where the boundaries are of the district. So based on that and working with staff, very pleased to announce that the tentative opening of the social district will be this coming Friday, July 16th. So that was the question that came up frequently, but I will defer to Mr. Twing, and we have other consultants that are working with us to promote that. So.
I think Mr. Brake did a good job of summary. With the approval of tonight's applicants, there are a total of 16 businesses in the downtown that have made application and signed the agreement, or would sign the agreement with the city. They are required on their own to file an application with the MLCC. We have been checking that weekly since your original approval of 14 applicants to see if anyone had been approved. As Mr. Brake said, as of last Thursday, 4 of them are listed on the MLCC's website as approval. Staff has contacted them about picking up the 2 different types of cups, the poster that identifies the rules, as well as the postcard. We have also received several new trash cans that we hope to get mounted in the next week or so at the boundaries, in case someone is leaving the boundary, and rather than throwing a cup on the ground, they've got a place to place it. So that's one of the last things that staff has to get out into the field. But all the sidewalk decals that make the boundary, they indicate no alcohol beyond this point. They're on the sidewalk, have been installed. Obviously, if the evaluation looks like we need more or different locations to address an issue, we do have some extras. The similar sidewalk decals that just identify the social district are pretty much down. I'm not going to say they're all down yet. We haven't verified them all, but those are just in the middle of the block so that people know they're still in the district. And we've ordered a few sandwich boards where we can put them up and display the rules so that people know what they are. And we'll probably have a few of those going out as soon as we get them along Main Street, Washington, and maybe 4th. And we'll see how those need to be adjusted, moved around. I think that from our end is where we're at. A lot of the moving parts are subject to others doing certain things, i.e. each of those businesses has to apply and then the MLCC has to approve them. So right now there are, as Mr. Brake indicated, 4 that are listed and we've made contact with all, and 2 of those should be getting their cups and things tomorrow. So that's my summary.
Any other questions for Mr. Twing or Mr. Brake on this issue? I should have explained before we went to this that this is a discussion of the approval of the social district licenses, which allows patrons to carry an alcoholic beverage outside of the facility, but not very far. Any other questions? Okay, then I'll accept a motion to approve this item, the approval of this social district issue. Motion by Commissioner Dubak. Second by Commissioner Hunt. Any further discussion on this item? All right, then we'll take a roll call vote. Starting with Commissioner Hunt.
Yes.
Commissioner Macy.
Yes.
Commissioner Dubak. Commissioner Colwell.
Yes.
And Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you, staff, for helping us through this. This is a new thing. We'll see how it goes. If anybody has questions or issues, contact us or the staff, and we'll cross our fingers that when it starts on Friday, everything goes well. The next item that was pulled off the agenda is item number I, letter I, the building division request to fill vacancies by Commissioner Colwell. Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I will actually defer to Paul, Mr. Brake, if that's okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So this item in particular, certainly the staffing level, we want to make sure as individuals that have indicated their intent to retire, that we have timely recruitment and we're able to recruit their replacement. What's happening in the industry is that there's just far fewer people that are coming in that they have the credentials in order to be an inspector. So it's a very competitive environment, and really looking at whatever it takes to get the right staff to come in the door. I had a conversation earlier today with Commissioner Colo, and it pertains to the very bottom of the be it final resolved. Currently, that group is represented by a collective bargaining unit, and they're in the process of negotiating that contract. It's rather unusual to set a wage range outside of that bargaining structure. So what I would ask that you do is that you remove that portion. We will continue to work with through the Human Resources Department, look at a compensation package that can provide competitive wages, and of course, if there's we do adjust the wages that also the current employees also experience that benefit as well. So it's not any indication of not wanting to adequately compensate those employees. Again, it's an issue of supply and demand. And so there's a few individuals out there, and we want to retain the staff that we have. But in terms of adjusting a wage rate, we're getting ahead of ourselves before we have finalized a tentative agreement. So I'd respectfully ask that if you so approve that you authorize the two code enforcement housing officials, as well as the electrical inspector, plumbing, and two mechanical inspectors, but leave the wages out for the time being.
Any other questions for Mr. Brake? Commissioner Douglas?
So you want to omit the last paragraph of the text completely?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Before we vote on this one, excuse me, Commissioner Douglas, let me just say this one thing. Melanie Hellish just texted me that I forgot to vote on the last item. I'll just let you all know, and for the record, that I voted yes, just like the rest of you. So, Commissioner Douglas, you had another question.
No, actually, I was going to move approval of the item with the removed paragraph.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Douglas made a motion to approve with the suggestion that the last paragraph be omitted. Is there a second? Motion by Commissioner Douglas, second by Commissioner Macy. Any further discussion on this item? If not, I will call for the vote. Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Commissioner Colo?
Yes.
Commissioner Dubak?
Yes.
Commissioner Macy?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt?
Yes.
And I vote yes. This motion passes. That brings us down to item number 9, the approval of amendments to Chapter 82 of our Code of Ordinances that deals with historic preservation on first reading. I don't know who is going to be handling this evening, whether it's Mr. Leal or someone else, Mr. Brake.
Well, I can start the discussion. And so first off, I'd be remiss if I did not compliment Carol Schwanger for all of her hard work and working with the Historic Preservation Committee. From my understanding is that we are seeking to become a certified local government. And there is a process that's required through the state Historic Preservation Office. So I'll defer if there's something that I'm overlooking, but it's pretty straightforward sort of information. But you know, there's a lot of individuals that have worked tirelessly to bring this forward and recommending this for your consideration for approval.
I'll add that that is absolutely correct. And there were really 5 significant changes, some additions to our terms in the first part of the ordinances, and then most significantly adding a portion that makes us in compliance with Public Act 169, where we add a provision regarding modifying or eliminating districts, which we would just follow 169, but it needs to be outlined in our ordinance. And all of these ordinance suggestions were made by Mr. Alan Higgins of the State Historic Preservation Office. He is working with us to help us get the CLG.
Questions, Commissioner Douglas?
What are the benefits of being a certified local government?
We would qualify for grants and support programs, including training for our historic study group and our historic district commission members to have training for specific things, including writing grants. But Leslie Snow is here from the Historic District Study Committee, and we would like to expand some of the public programs that we do. For instance, we've talked about having a map that shows like a walking tour or a biking tour or a driving tour of all the historic properties, having an event like that at some point with the public. So the CLG brings us resources from the state and from the National Park Services on how to do these events and support in how to market and help with all things like that. And all of that is free of cost. There's no cost to become a certified local government.
That sounds awesome. And what year is it more appropriate in than our centennial, the year we celebrate our centennial? That sounds just great. Good work, Ms. Schwanger.
Well, I'd like to compliment Tamis Donaldson, also from the Historic District Study Committee, and Leslie Snow for really pushing us forward. Tamis in particular, who took some training with the historic preservation, state historic preservation. We paid for her to go to as a volunteer, and it's already coming back to us.
Ms. Snow, do you have anything to add?
I just want to thank Carol Schwanger. I'm sure you already know this, but she's invaluable to all of you as well as our committee. But she really did a lot in working with us to start the process for the CLG, because there's really a lot of paperwork and documentation that goes with it. And I know that she and also Tamis, that is on our group, worked with the recommendations from the State Historic Preservation Office. So I know both of them are like dizzy from looking at this, looking at the changes that needed to be made. So I'm really appreciative of both of them and how much work. And we're just really excited about becoming a CLG, and it will, like Carol mentioned, give a lot of resources to us, help us to hopefully conduct another survey of historic properties. The last time that was done was, I don't know, the 80s or 90s. So, and it's hard for a group of only 7 people to find the time to do all that. So the CLG would help us to figure out better ways to come up with a survey for our historic properties. And hopefully there'll be more things that we can designate in the future. So really it's going to be a big help us, you know, in terms of the burden of financially as well as time, hopefully doing things smarter, not necessarily harder. So hopefully that will be good for us. So thank you all for considering it. We really appreciate it as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments for either Ms. Schwanger or Ms. Snow this evening? Commissioner Colo?
Ms. Schwanger, I think you were sick of me asking you questions about this and gave us a document because you knew I'd read all 87 pages of Chapter 82 of the ordinance now. So after reading this entire ordinance, thank you, and I'd like to move approval of this on first reading.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Colo to approve the ordinance amendments on first reading. Second by Commissioner Douglas. Any discussion on the motion? I just want to thank Ms. Schwanger and Ms. Snow as well for all the work. This is a complicated topic. And the good thing about it is that there have been, for decades, people in the community who have been very committed to doing what they can to recognize and preserve some of our historic properties. Unlike a lot of communities which have very large historic districts with a lot of buildings within the district, our districts tend to be individual homes or individual commercial properties, some on the downtown and some in our residential areas that are recognized and protected by this ordinance. And hopefully with these amendments here, we'll be able to apply for more grants, get some more resources, get some more public publicity about some of these historic properties in the city, perhaps protect more, and enhance the quality of life in our community by recognizing and enhancing these important assets. So with that, I will call for the vote, starting with Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Commissioner Colo.
Yes.
Commissioner DeBuck.
Yes.
Commissioner Macy.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. This is approved on first reading, so this will come back to us at a future meeting, and we'll go from there. Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Snow, and thank you, Ms. Schwanger, for sticking with us for this item.
Well, thank you for your support all the time.
The next item on our agenda is approval of the proposed charter and ballot language for the public safety millage renewal of the authorized millage. Mr. Brake, do you want to deal with this issue?
Yes, I'd happen to. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Peruch and City Commission. What's presented before you this evening is to begin the process to put on the ballot is not only renewal, but also an adjustment back to the original millage rate of 3.975 that was included and detailed within the budget document. The budget that was passed is that we are expending more than what we're taking in. So this is a suggestion that we look at rolling back the Headley and to the actual additional yield that should clarify is less than $800,000. So the additional amount that's being paid into the public safety fund. So to clarify, the millage covers about 1/3 of the cost. Then the remaining 2/3 is covered by the general fund. So this tax yield does not pay for entirely the operations of police, fire, and EMS, but rather makes that complete. Looking back historically at the information when this millage first came about in 2012, Don Johnson and other staff really went through a painstaking approach to look at what is the appropriate staffing levels at both police and fire. There were outside reviews that were done, and there were concessions that were made at that time. As we move forward, there is increased demands. As I indicated in a newspaper article to Mike McConnell at the Royal Oak Tribune, is that the fire department is experiencing a number of increased ambulance runs. As we have an aging in place population, there's increased demands that are associated with that. The police department is dealing with new added dimensions as a result of COVID, is adding great strain and public mental health issues. When there's a public or a mental health crisis, it's the police department that's usually the first to be called. I can tell you in my experience in all the years that I've worked in the public sector, it saddens me that there are fewer people going into, especially the ranks of both police and fire. And given that environment, now's not the time to cut corners and making sacrifices that when we should support our first responders. So based on that documentation, that it doesn't entirely shore up what the difference is, but it gives us time to evaluate. We do have the funds through the American Rescue Plan, but it's not entirely clear that any shortcomings that other than a revenue decrease can we tap into those monies. So let's put this into perspective. What are we talking about in this increase? For I ain't going to call this a typical house that has a market value of $400,000 with a taxable valuation of $200,000. This difference is $53. So if you want to divide that out by day, it's 15 cents a day. That's it. That's associated with that. So this is to keep our first responders well equipped and keep us competitive as a employer of first choice. And I have demonstrated through the budget document, what the demonstrated need is, and present that to the voters for their consideration. So our last levy of the existing mills is this coming December. Then it's the following year that this would take into effect. One last thing that I'd point out, the millage rate, if you look in the budget document at the tail end of the transmittal letter, if this increase goes through, our overall rate is decreasing. So take that into consideration. Headley is decreasing all of the other millage amounts, and when you look at the overall amount that the taxpayers are paying, it's a slightly lesser amount even with this increase. So that's increase is outpaced by several more decreases that provides a net amount. Hopefully this is helpful information to present for your consideration, but staff is presenting this to you for your consideration so we can forward this on to the Michigan Attorney General's office that they can give approval through the governor's office, and ultimately that we can include this on the November ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Brake. Any questions for Mr. Brake? Commissioner Dubuck.
Rate of 3.95 is the same rate that was approved by voters twice now in our city.
That is correct. When it was originally approved back in 2012, but upon the renewal, that was at a reduced amount based on the headline.
Right. So twice Royal Oakers have said 3.975 is the acceptable rate for us to make sure that we're properly investing in public safety. State law forced to roll back, but we have the right to go to the voters and say, do you want to keep it at this 3.975 that we've twice approved? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And do we, Mr. Bragg, do we have that chart that shows where our mills fall in Oakland County and then amongst our neighbors? Should this be renewed at 3.975?
That is included in the budget document that includes all the taxing jurisdictions. We're like 17 and a half, and I think the average of all the individual taxing jurisdictions is in the 18 range. So we're about average, but the millage rate is slightly less than that average.
And as I recall, with almost all of our adjacent neighbors at higher rates than us, but of course the rate is not the whole story. It's a function of property
right
as well. So it's a little bit of a tricky way to look at it, but for all things considered, we're still falling right about dead center in Oakland County.
Yes.
And amongst our neighbors. Should we renew it at this level? If we put this forward and it's not renewed, what is Plan B?
I think it's a realistic discussion. One of two things is that we could, present this again. Since this is a winter tax collection, this would be not ideal. But you would look at the primary election in the following year. Or if we just accept that, then there's significant reductions that we have to make. We're talking about $11 million worth of reductions respectively in police and fire and EMS. So that would be a noticeable change. There would be fewer ambulances. There would be fewer police officers that could respond to complaints out there. And we would be rolling back to essentially to the Great Michigan Recession in the early 2000s.
But should we put this on this November and not go forward, we would have other elections to attempt a renewal.
That is
Prior
correct.
to the expiration in December of 22.
Yes, that is correct.
So we're not like leaving ourselves with no outs here. I mean, I'm relatively confident the voters have overwhelmingly approved this rate twice. I don't see why there'd be pushback on doing it again. I think it's a fiscally responsible thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure that we do have options should it not go that way. And I think to be clear, this is just asking a question of the community and is in no way in contrast to Headley. We're doing exactly what Headley requires.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Douglas?
Yeah, just a comment. I feel like when I talk to people who live in our community and ask them what they want for our community, like the universal number one answer is a community that is safe. People love the work that our police department do. They worship our EMS crews. Any experience anyone has ever had with an EMS crew, despite perhaps unhappy circumstances, has been a very satisfying experience for them. And I have no problems at all supporting this millage. I think the voters are going to approve it, and I think it's the best thing for our city.
Any other questions, comments? If not, then we have a resolution in front of us that would authorize the city clerk to transmit this proposal to the Attorney General and get this on the November ballot. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner DeBuck?
I'll move for approval.
Motion by Commissioner DeBuck, support by Commissioner, did I see Commissioner Cole's hand? Commissioner Cole? Any discussion on the motion? All I will add at this point is that given the description that Mr. Bray gave us about increasing calls for both police and fire and EMS, this is not the time to defund either department. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we maintain good quality services. Those departments are excellent. We all love them, and they serve us all well. So we need to support them. Commissioner DeBuck?
I would just add that we're talking about a substantial portion of the city budget here, as Mr. Brake pointed out, 1/3 of which is supported by this. I believe it's about $39 million all day in public safety, give or take, right? So the suggestion that we should sit around and nickel and dime over contracts here or there for $10,000 or $1,000, and that somehow we're going to come up with the millions of dollars this means for public safety is just completely disingenuous. The right thing to do is to maintain this millage at the level it's been twice approved by voters, or at least give the voters the option to renew it at the same level and go from there. Of course, always trying to find places where we can save money, but some of the examples raised in public comment were silly in comparison to the scale of money that we're talking about that we invest in public safety.
Any other comments? I think it was important for Mr. Burke to point out that the difference between the increase in the millage level up to this level that we're going to be asking for, which is the authorized millage, and where we are now for the homeowner whose home is worth $400,000 a year, it's going to be $53 more in taxes per year, because other tax levels for our other millages in the city, including some of our debt, is disappearing or are going down. So overall, our tax rate is still going to be lower, even if this is authorized, and we bump back up to the full authorized level that we've had for the past 10 years. Any further discussion? I will then call for the vote. Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Commissioner Colo?
Yes.
Commissioner Dubuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Macy?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So that motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Brake. The next item on our agenda is also dealing with the same topic, and that's authorization for outreach initiatives for the public safety millage renewal, which is an effort that we have undertaken in past years. So I will let Mr. Brake explain this one.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. So I note my predecessor started this, or perhaps this was a city commission initiative, but to bring this to the forefront, authorization to send a communication out to the public, and it's in conferring with Judy Davids, has said that's been very effective, and hopefully you've experienced that as well. And presenting this for your consideration to authorize and bring that awareness level, that what our intent is to get the information out about this millage renewal and adjustment back to its original rate.
All right, any questions for Mr. Brake about this? Our comments. Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, we'll also have on the ballot 3 charter revisions. Would we not want to put together a document that informs people about the charter revisions as well as the public safety renewal?
The answer is yes.
I mean, because we have done that in the past.
Yeah, I would say to make that as complete as possible, and perhaps even we could spend a little bit of time talking about the solid waste renewal, although it's, there's no change in that. But absolutely, I think having perhaps even a mock ballot and to explain each of these elements and that sort of analysis. And again, the intent here is to provide information, and so it's not a matter of persuading anyone, but that they have factual information and the individuals can decide for themselves. But nevertheless, then the charter amendments to understand, what does that really mean, and to put that into context. That suggestion is as well taken by Commissioner Douglas.
I saw another hand. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Brake, the ability to do this isn't unique to Royal Oak, correct? This is derived from state law.
Can you repeat the first part of your question?
Yep, sorry. Our ability to send out this type of communication is not something that uniquely that we're doing. This comes from state law, from an initiative passed many years ago to inform, like you said, provide information to voters and not persuade voters, correct?
We do. I'd refer to the city attorney on what the enabling legislation is, but I can tell you in other Michigan communities where I have worked, I've worked on similar sort of efforts. Now, if there's a group that's disassociated with the city organization that puts on a yes campaign, they have that ability to advocate. But those, we cannot use any public funds. So in the instance here that, yes, I can tell you that's a common practice. I've worked on it, in other communities in the mid-Michigan area, and that's pretty common across the state. But I believe there is, it's, I don't know if it's a state law or, or more of a, the act that on the use of public funds that gets into advocating a certain public policy position that would preclude us from expending those dollars. But I would defer to City Attorney Leal, who could clarify that. So,
Mr. Leal, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah. Specifically, whether there's Michigan law on point, I don't know that off the top of my head. I do know that most states pass these types of statutes that limit public advocacy on election questions. They don't want cities spending public resources, i.e. not just money, but also staff time, paper, pens, all of that in promoting for or against a particular ballot proposition. So these laws are very typical across the United States. I would not be surprised if Michigan has one also, but that is usually a source of contention when a city itself chooses to give an informational brochure as to the facts of the ballot proposition. Some people don't like exactly some words that may be used, but in essence, it is a common practice that cities do engage in. It's just basically walking a tight wire, making sure you don't cross the line. And as Paul said, it is very common for special interest groups to actually do the advocating, which cities can't do.
Thank you, both of you. That's, I guess, a little more detailed explanation than I was looking into. I just wanted to make sure that we all know that this is a legal practice that we're partaking in. It's a very common practice throughout many Michigan cities for a very long time. And I'm sure Mr. Leal's office will look through whatever we write up to make sure that we're not crossing any lines. So thank you, Mr. Brake, for putting this together.
The last time that this was on the ballot, there was information that was sent out by the city manager, by Mr. Johnson, but there also was an advocacy group in support of the millage that was spending their own funds, not city funds, in order to advocate for the millage's passage. I don't know whether that will come about this time, but the city doesn't have the ability to, as Mr. Brake said, give the public information about just what the millage is all about. Any further discussion on this item or questions? If not, then we need a motion to approve this. Motion by Commissioner Douglas.
And Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I would say that the resolution should say regarding the renewal and restoration of the original public safety millage and the 3 charter review or charter revisions as part of the outreach initiative, etc.
Would you also like to include potentially a public waste?
The solid waste.
And the solid waste millage.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Douglas, support by Commissioner Colo. I'll read the resolution then with our additions. Be it resolved that the City Commission authorizes the city manager to prepare an informational letter and related background material regarding the renewal and the restoration of the original public safety millage, as well as the 3 charter amendments, as well as the renewal of the solid waste millage as part of the outreach initiative to all registered Royal Oak voters. So we have a motion by Commissioner Douglas, support by Commissioner Colo, my recollection. If there's no more discussion, I will call for the vote. Commissioner Hunt,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubak,
Yes.
Commissioner Colo,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that motion passes. That takes us down to item number 12, the approval of the proposed charter and ballot language for the refuse collection, disposal, and curbside recycling millage renewal. Mr. Brake, do you want to handle this? Or Mr. I don't know if Mr. Filipski is here this evening to talk on this.
Well, I will begin that discussion, and if Mr. Filipski wishes to join us. So this is a renewal of the local funded portion. So the solid waste collection is handled by 2 separate millages that's combined that pay for the solid waste operations. So there's a state mandated millage rate of 1.88, and the voter approved, which is currently at 0.69, is what is presented for the voters for their consideration. So this fund is a healthy amount. So we're just letting the Headley gradually decrease that millage rate. That would be my recommendation to present for your consideration. So this is in order to continue the what SACRA that does the waste collection. From my recollection, that SACRA has an agreement with GFL through 2027, so that would cover us the duration. This is a summer collection, so the taxes are currently being collected. So starting summer of 2022, that this would begin if this was approved by the voters. So commend Aaron Filipski, who is our board representative on the SACRA board, who represents the interests of the city in all the work, and also Mr. Leal's office, Mark Liss, who put together this information. Of course, vetting all the historical accuracy. Carol Schwanger, I should point out as well, that made a significant contribution in pulling all this information together. So staff is recommending that you approve this, that we can send that on to the Attorney General's office for a hopeful approval, that it can make it on the November ballot.
Any questions for Mr. Brake? Mr. Leal, do I see your hand?
I just wanted to point out a correction. If this is approved by this commission, if they can look at page 4 under the first full paragraph, the word royal has a hyphen in between the Y and the A. Any motion to approve this resolution should point out to have that particular typo corrected.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, then I will accept a motion for approval with the correction of the typo as described by Mr. Leal. Motion by Commissioner Colo, support by Commissioner Hunt. Any discussion? Then I will call for the vote. Starting with Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Commissioner Colo,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubak,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, thank you. On this topic, we've got 2 on our ballot for the fall. That brings us down to the last item on our agenda, which is item number 13, a discussion of resuming in-person city commission meetings. We have a lengthy, moderately lengthy letter and set of policies in front of us, and I will let Mr. Brake, kick off this discussion.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Perush. So as described in this memorandum, we have many moving parts here as we're coming out of potentially resuming in-person meetings. And I'd say potentially there's kind of a number of issues that are going on. I think in individual conversations that I've had with many of you as it pertains to the city commission, that you have a desire to meet back in person here in pretty short order. As we have our various volunteer boards, commissions, committees that are doing the city's work, we're noticing kind of a few dynamics out there. Is that really adequately giving notice to those boards and commissions that our intention of resuming the meetings, and of course everyone's individual circumstances, whether it be family commitments or other things. The pandemic has certainly impacted us each uniquely in a different way, and there's no universal sort of, where we flip a switch and everything goes away. It hasn't gone away, and so that concern still remains. On top of that, as much as I am and Mr. Leal, we're sitting in this beautiful brand new building, as I would say that we're still under warranty. We're finding kind of some of the technology sort of bugs that are out there, and have discussed where can we conduct a hybrid meeting. So where the majority could be present, but say an individual or 2 that's on a voting board had the ability to participate in the deliberations and also convey their vote. What we're finding in the commission chambers, there's some additional modifications that we need to make. It's not COVID related, but it's a matter of having part Zoom and part individuals in person. So we want to move on that very quickly. So kind of twofold is that a lot of issues have kind of come to the forefront of some abrupt changes that perhaps were not communicated effectively, and we really need to get our house in order, if you will, and have a standard practice. There's some smaller groups that have resumed in-person meetings, and it hasn't been a problem. But where it becomes an issue is that some individuals may have concerns that if there is a larger gathering, because all the restrictions by the state have been removed. And so we can operate at full meeting capacity, but yet, there is that potential of exposure. I kind of throw that out of hopefully I'm defining the issues here. One of the suggestions that I may make, and this will impact the following meeting in July, is if you wish to extend that emergency order, that we can more gradually integrate the boards, commissions, and committees as it's deemed appropriate. Absent doing that, and I should point out, you take the hybrid possibility out. So if the emergency order goes away, then everyone has to come back and meet in person. There's no telephonic, no electronic, no Zoom or anything like that anyone can participate. So the state law that was passed gives us the ability through the remainder of the calendar year, then it'll go away, then we will no longer have that option. So I'm presenting that for your consideration, but looking for a little bit of direction from the commission. So consider this. Say you do want to extend it like 2 or 3 more months, but you say, we as a commission, we would like to convene in person. And that does not mean that we have to continue, this body to continue meeting via Zoom. It just means it gives those other boards and commissions that option, depending on the family circumstances, life, work. There's any number of things that have come out of this conversation, and there's perhaps Ms. Schwanger knows this, but I think we have 200 plus individuals that serve on all these different boards and commissions, and maybe I'm misstating that number, but nevertheless, there's a lot of individuals that volunteer their time, and as we're conscious of the commitments that they have and that they can continue to participate. So I hope this gives you some good background information. This is kind of an ongoing conversation, and we can make additional modifications and communicate out. But this does start with typically following a city commission meeting. I meet with the department directors the following day, and this will be the top topic that I'll cover with them is how do we go about in providing that information, that if folks are opening up the packet, getting ready for the meeting and noticing, oh, wait a minute, we're meeting in person and they haven't made arrangements with family commitments or whatever. So we need to push that information out a lot sooner to individuals so they can make appropriate sort of arrangements. So I'm hoping this framework gives you kind of some things to think about. We're not looking for a firm vote, but I am looking for some direction if you intend to extend out this order. And so this can be prepared by the city attorney's office, and we'll have this on the July 26th meeting. Or your other option may be just let it lapse, and that we'll have to move pretty quickly come August 1st. That any meeting will have to be in person, and individuals that wish to participate will have to come to the building. So I will pause, and if there's questions, comments, anything that I can clarify in the information that I presented to you, and I truly hope you find this helpful.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brake. We will open this up to discussion and questions. Commissioner Macy.
Thanks, Mr. Brake, for that. So I think I agree with you that I've heard the same thing from this body, that it seems like we're probably ready to move back in person. I think the next meeting, I'm going to guess that's what people are thinking already. But it does seem like there's maybe some boards and committees that aren't there yet. And I do think it's totally inappropriate for a board to be told shortly before a meeting, by the way, it's suddenly in person. This should probably be something that the board and committee decides on itself at a prior meeting. And then it makes arrangements for going forward. As you say, it's not even COVID only anymore. Like, I missed the last library board meeting because they decided to be in person, and I'd planned a vacation. So there's just like, when things are virtual, attending meetings are possible in ways that they haven't been before. So I personally am in favor of extending it out as long as boards are aware that they can make their own decision about how to meet. But the question I have that I didn't quite get from your letter or from what you just said right now is, what do you envision as the hybrid? What does the hybrid model look like? I'm not seeing it in my head. Like, what does it look like to the public? What does it look like to the participants? And what does it look like to the person? I mean, you're saying we don't have the technology, but what is even the model?
Well, we do have the technology, and we have conducted some hybrid meetings where it has worked in principle. Let me say this, is that we've had, and I think it's the Commission for the Arts that conducted a hybrid meeting where we had a few individuals that were in person. It was not in the commission chambers, but it was the conference room, the large conference room there. And in that room, we have a television monitor that has a little camera. It's almost like a big computer screen. And so I think the majority of people that participated, and I know Mayor Pro Tem Perush is on that committee. Hopefully I'm stating that right, because I was not there, but this is what was repeated to me, is that...
and I was not there either. I missed that meeting.
Oh, okay. So that was a hybrid. In that instance, there were fewer people present, but they were in the conference room, and there were individuals that zoomed in. from from what I've heard anecdotally is that for the person that's Zooming, that's, so dialing in from their home, the screen view and envision this is, this wide angle lens and it may be hard to see individuals, and it's not quite as interactive as our Brady Bunch boxes here when we know that each person is speaking. So there's still a little bit of awkwardness that goes along with that. So what's going on with the commission chambers? So could we make that work? Yes, we can. The way that the wiring is for the audio, if we were to set up, if you notice in the commission chambers, I think we have like 6 monitors that are suspended from the ceiling, and then there's one that's down below. And one of the monitors could be dedicated to this this analogy that I said as a computer screen. Well, what the feedback that I'm getting from staff is that if we turn one of those monitors into to use that for Zoom, there's an audio delay of about 1.5 minutes. So that's the little bit of reluctance I've had of bringing people in there, and then make it very disruptive to having that sort of delay and kind of waiting for the other person to catch up. The other route is that we use a telephone that's in there, but then the person doesn't have the benefit of the visuals and things that are shown on the screen. So there's kind of weird sort of things. We'll get through it. I think once we're done, we'll have some awesome technology here, and we'll be the envy of the area. But we're still kind of in the beta right now. But that hybrid, again, the short answer: some people present, other people dialing in remotely.
Okay. I mean, I think I understand what you're saying, but I mean, people have been teleconferencing for decades. At least a decade now. It seems like people from another country, and I used to do it when I wasn't able to get to Ann Arbor for work, and they would have my head on a big screen, which was actually horrific. But nonetheless, it feels like this is a problem that we've solved. So that society has solved kind of a long time ago. So I hear what you're saying, still not quite getting it, and I hope we can figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that it's something that can be resolved in short order. I don't want to just kind of laying it out there. Then, for one thing, that room wasn't used until within the last couple months, and some of the groups, like the Crime Prevention Council, for instance, that was a small group that was in there, and I think everyone met in person. I don't think there was anyone remotely, but we're kind of discovering this as we go along. What I don't want to do is that we're all busy people, and my worst nightmare is to bring all of us in and we have this major disruption. Usually there's kind of this momentum that we move from one topic to the next, and if we're having to do this kind of stop and pause, it's really disruptive, and that's kind of my reluctance to say, oh sure, let's try it and make sure everything works out. My hope is that I want to go through and go do all the tweakings and make sure that it's a seamless process, so it's a good experience, and for the individuals that are viewing it either from home or in person can have a good understanding, and there's no inhibiting factors such as audio or video.
I think one of the differences in our situation, even between us and the Commission for the Arts, is that our meeting is televised and the Commission for the Arts meeting is not televised. And so the Commission for the Arts can have a meeting, as Commissioner Macy describes, where you're doing a remote conference call and everybody's on their own screen, for a large corporation, somebody's in California, somebody's in New York, and it all works. But their meetings aren't televised, and their meetings are not open to the public, and the public doesn't have an opportunity to kind of bump in. So I think that it's that third layer of our meetings, which are public, and the public's ability to participate, which complicates this, and which I think complicates the whole audio video setup, because we've got to work with WROK as opposed to just ourselves internally. And that I think is the tricky part.
Right. So I would say for the boards and commissions that are televised and that we've established that the precedents, we have to make sure that that's right. In defense of WROK, it's not casting any criticism or anything like that. It's
No.
just that we've had a number of people that have worked on technology. We've had them come back a third time, and so Richard Wilson and his staff do an excellent job. So I want to, call out that praise. But nevertheless, I think this is just a temporary sort of thing. I just kind of described that to you on the side, but I think, going back to Commissioner Macy's point of individuals that because of their life or family or work circumstances and things like that, that would like to continue to participate, if we had that ability, it just gives us another option before we close that chapter. Like I said, we're going to have to wrap this up by the end of the year, but if you desire to extend it by a few months, several months, that's what sort of direction that we're looking for.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Brigg and I have actually talked about this extensively over the last week or so. So I would just add that, Delta's out there. We don't know what's going to do. If you look at COVID curves right now in Europe, they're not quite curves. They're straight lines going vertical. It is scary. So while we're safe now, and I'm very comfortable, I'm excited to see all of you in person, hopefully in 2 weeks at our next meeting. I also know COVID changes quickly, and it's changed quickly 3 different times now here in Royal Oak. And luckily, we've had these abilities to pivot when needed. So I think it's important that we keep this ability to pivot as a tool that we have, so we can go to a hybrid meeting if needed. If there are some people with situations, I have 2 young kids at home. Maybe if there's a lot of Delta out there, maybe I'm less comfortable being inside a closed space like this and need to conduct virtually to take care of my kids, myself, or, my parents, there's a lot of, and it's not just the 7 of us, it is also the 200 volunteers that we have. That's what I think about. So I hope that we continue to do this. Not only for us, but for all the volunteers in Royal Oak to keep us safe. I will say though, Mr. Brake, listening to your explanation to Commissioner Macy, and we've talked about this a lot, I hope we find a better solution. I do not think that a phone line is a good hybrid option. I think you're going to have more interruptions over phone, trying to figure out, someone just yell, I have a question. Hey, I need to talk. It will be way more disruptive than having a visual cue. And if it's not, if it's not through WROK on our, chamber TVs, I think that there's a simple option of connecting a webcam to a TV in the chamber and figuring out the audio. I say simple now, and I realize it's a month of an IT person trying to figure out how to do that, right? So it's not simple, but a creative option. So I just hope that we continue. Any hybrid option that we do, I think needs to be video, and not relying on watching a news web feed of WROK, because that is delayed. I can pull up the web feed right now, and I think Commissioner Macy would probably still be talking. So it's that's not an option, especially if you're debating and going back and forth. The person watching at home will always be behind. They will never contribute to the debate. So as we're moving forward with this, I really urge you to continue working on that video option.
Any further discussion? I thought I saw another hand. Commissioner Dubak.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents that I do think we should get back in person sooner than later. I think it's reasonable to continue to offer options for our board and committee volunteers for the time being. But do we have comparison as far as our neighbor cities? I know that a lot of our neighbors have gone back in person. Have they done anything innovative or interesting that's really working as far as hybrid that makes sense? And Oakland County's gone completely back in person now. Are there examples we can follow from some of the cities that have already started to get back over the last few weeks or month that you're aware of, Mr. Bird?
We have done, I'm on a city manager's listserv, and I posted that question earlier this morning, and I got 1 response, but I think the trend is most have truly resumed in-person meetings, but like I said, hey, we're a unique community, and the individuals and on top of the technology, that's where I kind of bring that to your attention, that there perhaps that we kind of continue that pause, and if you're amenable, we can bring back a minimum of an additional 2 months, but yet have the city commission meet in person at the January 26th meeting. Or if you would like a longer duration, again, we do have until the end of the calendar year.
My only interest.
July 26th, correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Was I
You said
Freudian? Said January? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, July 26th. Thank you.
My primary interest in any sort of extension is just to give those boards and committees time to have a conversation about what's going to work best for them. I think ultimately, folks are going to be best served by being vaccinated, distancing, and wearing masks. If they're still not comfortable indoors,
Right.
And whatever the best guidance we can give and accommodations we can make, let's do that. But let's just give folks a little runway to make that happen while we return to the normal course of business to the extent that we can.
Any other comments? Commissioner Hunt?
Yeah, I would just concur with Commissioner Dubak. I'm excited to get back and get in front of everyone else, but there are some concerning data coming out about the Delta variant, at least as it relates to waning vaccination results and the ability to control that. So I would like the other commissions, the other groups to be able to control whether or not they come back in, but I look forward to seeing all of you, and hopefully that'll be, the next meeting.
Commissioner Douglas. Commissioner Douglas, you're muted.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So what we're saying is that the bodies themselves and not staff will decide if they are going to meet remotely, in person, or as a hybrid. So that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, and let me roll some stuff out here.
Sure.
So if we have a hybrid meeting, that is, bodies are at City Hall, we have satisfied the Open Meetings Act because the public can come in and sit in that room, even if multiple people are up on a screen. And the Aging in Place Task Force has done this, so I'm familiar with it. But what if we declare a hybrid meeting and then nobody comes to the room itself? Do the members of the public still get to come in and sit there and witness on the big screen the Zoom meeting that's going on?
Yes.
Okay. So the bodies that meet in the commission chamber are us, Planning Commission, Zoning Board, and Safety Committee. Are there any others?
Library board. Oh, I'm sorry.
That was just because it wasn't open yet. But now we'll meet again in the library auditorium.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I misspoke. So
Traffic,
Planning, Zoning, City Commission, I think. Am I missing anything?
I think you're right.
So it strikes me that given the insufficiency right now of that room's ability to have a productive hybrid discussion, it strikes me that those bodies are either going to have to vote to meet entirely in person or entirely by Zoom, that a hybrid isn't an option. And obviously we're saying that that's for them to decide, but it strikes me that those are the only two options that they have. Am I correct in this so far?
No, there's more dynamics to that. I mean, not to make this more confusing, but initially you could have where you say, okay, next month, everyone, we're meeting in person. And then someone says, you know what, something came up. I couldn't get a babysitter, but I'd really like to be at that meeting. Can you pivot and make that a hybrid? So you're going to have the kind of the dynamics of that. So, and with that being said, the expectation is, if I can add a little bit more onto your comment, Commissioner Douglas, I would say that staff conferring with the board or commission, I guess give a little bit of flexibility there because the dynamics of each group are from what I noticed, are entirely different.
So, if a commission or if a body, let's call it a committee, even if that covering all of the different types of
Sure.
organizations. If a committee says, no, we want to have a Zoom meeting, is the staff going to say, no, I'm sorry, you have to meet in person?
I'm telling you tonight that no, they will not have the staff dictate to them.
Okay. So, and if a committee wants to have a hybrid meeting, then they're going to need to be informed by staff of the great problems in terms of meaningful participation given our current technology. So that would be staff's rule there.
Right, correct.
And it strikes me that if a committee votes in July to meet in person in August, that nobody gets to renege and say, oops, now I want to meet remotely. That is, once they've agreed to meet in person, they're going to have to meet in person. And if you can't make it, you've missed the meeting.
Makes sense to me.
Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah.
And we also need to, so all right, that's starting to be a little more clear now, but as we consider this, we also need to think about our rule about missing meetings, because if someone misses 2 meetings in a row or a total of 3 on a committee, they are automatically removed from that committee. And if they want to continue to participate, they have to petition the appointments committee to participate. Are we going to continue enforcing that commission established rule?
I would say in the context of an unexcused absence, but I don't want to misspeak on, the particulars of that verbiage.
There are no excuses.
Okay, all right. Then I'm
You're either there or you're not, and
Okay.
reasons don't matter.
Okay.
So, I mean, I asked my fellow commissioners here, how do we want to handle that? And those are my sort of, I'm rambling a little bit here, but because there's just so many things to try and get your arms around, I'm just trying to articulate the things that I think will affect the people who volunteer for us. And I think that's what we want to do here, is make sure they're comfortable and safe, but also know what's happening. So I'm done.
Is our appointments policy set by policy in terms of, for example, the absence one, or is that an ordinance?
No, it's a policy.
Okay.
It's an ordinance. Commissioner Colo is shaking his head.
I believe it's not that I've read all the ordinances, but I believe it's an ordinance.
My recollection is that it is as well.
Okay, there you go.
So we might not have any discretion to table or to put that, not enforce that provision of it if it is an ordinance. But it's something worth considering. It's certainly something worth bringing up to each individual committee as the staff goes through this process and this policy with them, to explain that because it is an ordinance, there is the threat there that if you miss more than 2 meetings, you could lose your seat, even if it's for a valid reason. Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. And just to follow up a couple things Commissioner Douglas said, I'm not sure we're all talking about the same thing. My preference is to see every meeting have the ability to be hybrid, that an individual can make that judgment call based, and Mr. Brigg, as soon as the technology is available. I know you're working on fixing that technology, but once we do roll out that technology, and it is 2021, we have, this is coming, but I would prefer that meetings are hybrid. So, once again, this is pandemic related. Things change if, from June to July, there could be a major change in what the conditions look like. So if you said, yeah, I'm fine going back to in person, but then, a week before, you're just not comfortable being out in public, you're sick, you have COVID yourself, you don't want to infect other people, or you have a flu. I know, like, a lot of people are finally, we're out again, we're seeing people, we're getting these crazy viruses we haven't had in so long. But either way, I think by default, we should have the hybrid as an option at all times.
With that being said, I'd like to go back to a suggestion that Commissioner Douglas said. Here's my little bit of reluctance that I have. If you make this unwieldy, it becomes very difficult to manage. And one of the things that Commissioner Douglas said that I wholeheartedly agree with is that if you said, we're meeting in July, all right, everyone, we're agreeing in advance that this committee, we're going to meet in person in August. And you had that predetermination. Whereas this constantly, here's where it's not going to be manageable. If you're calling my office because one person doesn't want to participate at the last minute that they're not able to make, this is going to be disruptive. And so I can appreciate the flexibility, but you're going to have some rigid sort of hard stop. And so we're not constantly chasing ourselves around in order to make this work. I understand what you're saying, but you need some advanced coordination, and let's not make this harder on ourselves than it needs to be.
But if we assume every meeting is hybrid, we have the technology set up, we train the staff liaisons to manage the Zoom call, etc.
No. We need to clarify that, because there's small groups that are going back in. What you're doing is you're adding in a lot of staff time that just enormously time consuming, that are no longer doing Zoom meetings. We do have small groups that have agreed and said that they're willing to meet in person. What you're talking about is having us go back the opposite direction. And so I want to be real clear about that. Now, the bigger groups that was mentioned, kind of the primary, the city commission, ZBA, the planning commission, that's a different animal. But if you're now saying that every one of these groups that have stopped having the Zoom meetings, that they have to bring that back up, then that creates a lot of calendar issues. And so I would say, let us slowly migrate that way, and we'll deal with a few of these individual issues. But I just want to be real upfront about that I understand there's that desire to have that level of involvement, but it's an enormous staff task, and I'm trying to move away from that, just based on capacity, because we're not able to, I'm getting bogged down on other projects that I need to move forward for you. So
we're not talking, just so I'm clear, we're not talking about broadcasting like we used to on WROK. We're not talking about
well, I wasn't sure. That's why I was clarifying.
No, not broadcasting WROK. Just having the ability of someone to be on a screen in the room with everyone else. I'm not talking about going back to broadcasting.
Okay.
So,
but still, that does involve where you have to have a person who's conducting that Zoom. So we can talk offline. I think there's a way of getting there, but I don't want to misstate something and say, oh yeah, that's not a problem, and then then it comes back later. So I think the more simplified that we can go about this, and that there's the underlying issue here is communication, and communicating these things far enough in advance so people have a good understanding, and generally people can work around that. And like it was stated before, is maybe, next month I'm out of town and I won't be there, and and that's fine too.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brick.
Further questions or discussion?
So if I can wrap this up, I'm hearing that you would like to have us extend this. So we'll bring this back in 2 weeks. So I guess, can I get a number from you? Should we go into the end of September?
What is the minimum extension we can do?
Well, you can call it whatever. It's just, I would not do anything less than a month. But honestly, if you're going to extend it, I would say give it 2 months, or you say, we're just going to go to the end of the year.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yeah, I would say go to the end of the year. I mean, it's been clear that it allows us, it doesn't require meetings to be in person, be remote, but it allows meetings to be remote. Given that that's what the state has established, that just seems to be simpler all around.
Commissioner Dubak?
To extend it that far, but I still want to get us on a schedule where both we and our committees have a target well before that extension, that we're getting back to in-person meetings, so long as the trends with the virus don't change dramatically. I like having the flexibility to adjust in reverse course if need be, but I think we should still have a view to getting folks back to in-person meetings and identifying what makes them feel safe and able to participate in that format sooner than later. So if that means making sure folks are in a space where every member of that board or committee can be socially distanced, if it means putting up plexiglass dividers, I would like for us to get back to that and not just say, we've extended for 2 months so folks don't have to talk about it again until, 2 weeks before that one runs out.
Any further discussion on the extension? I think we all are comfortable and think that an extension is appropriate. To the end of the year, I have a feeling by extending it to the end of the year, it gives the other boards and commissions the idea that they can, stall is an inappropriate word, but not be aggressive in terms of resolving this issue for their own particular board. And we need to be able to communicate with them that, we want to see them all back in person sooner rather than later. Acknowledging that there are still issues out there. I would be comfortable with 2 or 3 months. Keeping in mind that it's already almost August and we're going to start seeing Christmas decorations pretty soon. So, the end of the year is going to come real quick. Commissioner Macy? Yeah, I know. I mentioned a bad word, but Commissioner Macy.
Christmas, I'll start playing my Christmas tunes right now. So I guess I just don't think that the boards and commissions are going to want to do hybrid for the sake of hybrid, because I think hybrid kind of stinks. So even if we didn't have technology issues, which we do, like I said, I participated in these video conferences before, and it's like you don't really feel like you're part of it, and it's hard to get in at the right time, even when there's not a delay. I think the people who are going to be staying home are going to have a good reason for doing so, at least in their, like, it'll be personal to them, but I don't think people are going to do it because, especially if, there are people who are meeting in person, I think they're going to be there. So for me, extend it to the end of the year. I think we're going to see people get back to almost fully in person before that, but this gives flexibility for people who have something that comes up in the interim. And I do think we're going to see another little spike, at least in the fall. And when we do, I don't want those sick people coming to meetings if they don't have to.
That makes sense. Commissioner Colo?
I agree with everything Commissioner Macy just said.
Thanks, Commissioner Colo.
Is there anyone who strongly objects to extending it to the end of the year? I do not strongly object at all. Okay, then Mr. Brake, we at least have that resolved, that we'll extend it to the end of the year. I think the other thing that we've established is that at the next meeting for the City Commission, we intend to be in person unless something catastrophic happens. Okay, so we've resolved that. And I think we've also gotten comfortable with the fact that each individual committee or board will make its own decision as to how it handles meetings on a going forward basis. That it will be the staff's responsibility to explain this and to give them options and to give them time in advance notice to make decisions and to make a choice about how they want to handle their next meeting, most of which only meet monthly, which makes it a little bit easier. Any other issues that you would like some direction on that we haven't touched on?
No, I think that covered it. Thank you. This has been a good conversation, brings some clarity. So this is a first for all of us coming out of a pandemic. So there's no point of reference.
Okay, before we wrap up the discussion, I want to make sure that there is no one else out there that wants to comment or make any suggestions. Commissioner Polo.
If we're coming back in person, and since he's not here, can we ban the mayor's bad jokes? Is that an option?
I so move.
You move where?
Okay, then if there's nothing further, thank you for Mr. Brake for bringing this back to us.
Welcome, thank you.
I'm using my earpiece so that I can hear all of you tonight. And we'll go from there. And if there's anything else that needs to come up on this topic, let us know. Otherwise, we can certainly discuss it a little bit further at the next meeting in person in City Hall. I think most of us have only been in the building, perhaps with the exception of Mr. Colo, just once or twice since this whole pandemic started. So it would be nice to be in the building.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I will point out, I'm the only commissioner who's actually held a commission meeting at City Hall so far.
That's true. That's true.
As a commissioner, a commission meeting, Commissioner Douglas, I was in City Hall for the May 25th meeting. So somehow I beat you all.
That's true. That's correct. I would have had a meeting. I would have participated at a meeting, but I missed the Commissions of the Arts meeting this past month. So. Okay, that brings us to the end of our regular agenda. Are there any other items that we need to add to the agenda, even though we didn't add them earlier, Mr. Brake?
No, we are all set. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing further from anyone on the commission, I will accept a motion to adjourn at 9:22. Motion by Commissioner Colo, supported by Commissioner Dubuck. Any discussion? If not, I will call for the vote, starting with Commissioner Hunt,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Colo.
For hopefully the final time on Zoom, yes.
Absolutely. Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
And I vote yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all for participating this evening. Have a good evening. We will see you again in 2 weeks. Mayor Fournier, if you're watching us, we've got our fingers crossed that things are going well. We're thinking about you and your family, and hopefully we'll see you in July 26th in person with the rest of us. So have a good evening all, and take care, and thanks for joining us. Good night.
Thank you.
Great job, Pat.